You are now tuned into Flippin' the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
My bad. Definitely should have had us in the stream before that. What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome on to episode 108 of Flipping the Birds. I'm Bryan Cameron. He's Morgan Burkett, and this is presented by Tick Pick, where you could get same seats for better prices and without the hassle of paying those extra fees. So make sure you guys hit the link below in our description for our Tick Pick link. And yeah, definitely get some Eagles tickets because right now they're definitely worth it at this point. I mean, it's entertaining to say the least.
For sure. I mean, good win, good team win. Honestly, the first time we've seen this team since the Falcons game be pretty good in all phases. I'm not ready to, crown them into a playoff position yet, but it was nice.
Week. Yeah, heavy talk about that this week. Everybody's talking about the Eagles being in the hunt. Eagles possibly preparing for a playoff trip. Okay, we'll get to that later. But first and foremost, how you feeling, man?
Sure. I feel good, man. I mean, I had a chance to rewatch the game recently, and I don't know. I'm feeling pretty optimistic. I think I'm gonna be the voice of reason this week and temper expectations a bit. What I did see is honestly just a good coaching win, man. They came prepared, limited mistakes. Obviously, you can't account for Derek Barnett being a dingus, but is what it is. Good coaching win. They came prepared against a team that especially to start the season, they really should beat. So it was good to see them come and take care of business. I don't
Derek
know.
Barnett. Derek freaking Barnett, first round pick, but he's not the only first round pick that's being a little bit of a dingus right now. To steal your word,
that's true.
An unfortunate dingus. Jalen Reagard, I mean, he's completely fallen off the radar. I mean, the kid, again, negative yardage, and it's, and I'll explain what later on, why I feel like it's not so much his fault and why we got to lay off a little bit. But Eagles did go into Denver in the Mile High, and they came out with a very, I want to say, convincing win. Jalen Hurts, I said last week, if I was -6 on Jalen, I moved to -3 last week. Now I'm borderline -1 to 1.5, just because he did have a couple moments in the first half, especially where he bailed on the pocket or he missed through the ball inaccurately. But he's looking good, and he looks like I mentioned it several times. The game needs to slow down for him, and it looks like the game is actually starting to get to that point where it's everything's moving slow enough for him to actually take a deep breath, go through his reads, and hit the right target. And it's convincing right now to me. And I mean, I wrote an article about it, and it's kind of I'm at the level where it's hey, if this kid keeps developing, this is actually what the Jalen Hurts that we expected. And those first round picks may make sense to be focused on weapons for the offense, probably Chris Olave, or weapons for the defense. How do you feel about this week's win? Was it convincing enough for you where this team is heading in the right direction? Jalen, Nick, I feel like you have a lot in your head right now.
Yeah. I think first off, I didn't need much convincing personally to say let's go defense in this draft. I just think that's how you're better. Obviously, we've talked about Russell Wilson and all that drama and possibilities. I just think Russell Wilson's one of those guys that if you have a chance of getting, you get. That's not a commentary on Jalen Hurts. It's not a commentary on what the Eagles should do going forward, but that's just a guy. If he's available, he wants to come to Philly, you just make it happen. That's one of those guys. He's potential likely Hall of Famer by the end of his career. You just get a guy like that. So that aside, I didn't need much convincing to say let's go defense. I think that's how you build a team these days. We saw over the last couple of years, obviously the Chiefs are a bit of an anomaly, but defense is won championships. It was even with the Eagles Super Bowl. No defense until the play that mattered, right? So you need guys like that. You need players. What I saw this week was more of a coaching win than a Jalen Hurts win. I think there's some things still that I have some questions about. Obviously, it's good development. The other thing to be said is like, the past is the past, but I don't know why this took so long to realize that this is the offense that needs to happen to facilitate Jalen Hurts. There's a couple developments that I saw that I really like. Is one I've been talking about for a few weeks is he's stepping up into the left in the pocket. That third down throw to Dallas Goedert where he took that hit. Beautiful.
That
Beautiful
freaking hit, bro. That damn hit.
Terrible hit. But what I saw before that is Jalen Hurts saw the pressure. He stepped up. He went left. And then look at that. He's wide open, right? And what that does, it does a few things. One, you can throw crossing patterns to the left-hand side of the field. Huge. But the other thing it does is we've seen a lot of right defensive ends. So going against Jordan Mailata usually, they know that Jalen Hurts isn't going to step up into the left. He's not done that. If you're watching film, you see that he's not doing that. So immediately your trajectory for your rush is deep. So that's Jordan Mailata is getting all the way back. It doesn't take as much to crowd the pocket forward as now because you have guard on guard. Jason Kelsey helps what he can, but when you get the pocket spread out like that, internal pressure is really hard to contain. So if he's just able to step up into the left, now you got defensive ends. They have to try a bull rush, have to try cutting back inside, and Jordan Mailata eats that up, right? So that's one development. It's huge. It's massive. And it seems like it's such a small thing, but it's going to pay dividends if he can keep doing that. The number two thing I saw is there's a few design rollout plays that Sirianni clearly likes, and they're going to a bit more.
And one of those was the Devontae Smith touchdown.
Exactly. And what I saw in the Devontae Smith touchdown, obviously a great play by Devontae Smith. I don't know if you're watching film back, I don't know if you go, hey, Jalen, you got to throw that ball. It was a great play. It was,
showed a lot of shots, a lot of faith.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to love that that's happening. I don't know if if you're teaching a quarterback how to play, I don't know if you're like, hey, throw that ball like that. It worked. It's great. That's a great play. But what I saw is when he's rolling out, he's extending that pocket a lot. He's extending that pocket and he's going all the way to the sideline before he makes that throw. But there were a couple of times in this game where he stops. What you're supposed to be looking for is your center or your right guard, depending on where your pivot point is, right? So he's extending, and then he's making these throws across his body because you got it, because he's already at the sideline. And what you really want is you want him setting up behind the guard. And there's a couple plays. I'm trying to think. There was one play, I think early in the game, maybe that first Dallas Goedert catch where it was kind of just a Hail Mary throw. He just kind of tossed it up. Dallas Goedert made that one hand catch to his stick, but he set up at the right position. And then there's another throw to Quez Watkins where he's setting up in the right spot. So that another huge development. Final development, which I know you're going to want to talk about a lot, is I don't know if it's coming from the sideline. I don't know if it's Jalen Hurts making these decisions, but a lot more running in run RPOs and read options. He's handing the ball off. Obviously,
absolutely, yeah.
Still a great runner. Still made a lot of plays on his feet, but he's reading that a lot better now. And again, I don't know if that's a read. I don't know if Sirianni from the sideline just hand the ball off, man. But yeah, three pretty good developments. Outside of that, I don't know if this is a game that convinced me anything. This is a game that we're running the football on your defense, and we'll talk about the defense, I'm sure.
Okay.
Pretty much won you that game. Okay. I love talking defense.
Oddly enough, you did.
Yeah, exactly.
So you hit on a lot of good points. And one thing I really want to point out is we complained a lot about time of possession for the better half of the beginning of the season.
Sure.
The last 3 weeks, they've averaged 35 minutes time possession, 33. And, they've all been close games. 2 of them wins. 1 of them was a loss to the Chargers. But that's the key. If you control time of possession, that's your bread and butter right there. That's exactly what you need to succeed in this league. That's what you needed against the Bucks. That's what you needed against the Chargers more so. I mean, they did control it. It was, borderline, but
right.
That's exactly what you need to succeed. You needed that against the Cowboys, opposed to going for a shootout. You needed that against, a lot more high octane offenses that we faced, and that's going to be key for Jalen's development because we made a point early on in probably I think it was the offseason when Chris was here, was that the Eagles needed to treat Jalen as a game manager.
Right.
You can't just throw him out there, which is ironically what they did, and act like he's, the second coming of Joe Montana. You had to ease him into the game, ease him into this new offense. The genius move, what I feel like that they made was bringing the QB coach from the box to the field, having him in Jalen's ear significantly enough. And it's showing. It's showing that, hey, I could, this is a guy that I knew in my childhood, and I could trust him more than anybody. And he's right there when I come to the sideline. He's right there waiting for me, and that pays off big. I mean, that's a comfort level that not too many QBs have in this league. I mean, nobody has their childhood coach on the sidelines.
Right.
Jalen Hurts does. Nobody really has the wide receiver that they play with in college, except for Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts does. Like that's so significant, and I feel like it's so wild because I'm trying not to jump on the bandwagon so much. But like when I see number one just running to the side, and he had one play, and I forgot, it could have been Jaquez. He rolled out to the right, and it was not so much a rollout. He's actually, like kind of bailing the pocket, but he wasn't giving up on the throw. Like his eyes were still downfield. He was focused on his target, and he nailed. Could have been Quez or Devontae, but he nailed one of them dead center, and it was a first down. Like those kind of plays, like the fact that he's finally coming into his own and he's finding a comfort level in the run game opposed to just a pass-heavy offense is going to pay off so much down the stretch. And oddly enough, we do have the easiest schedule, which is why everybody's talking about playoff football. But before we talk about playoff football, let's talk defense.
Okay.
You mentioned Derek Barnett making a bonehead move.
Yeah.
And you're fired up because I felt like you were watching the game before you jumped on the podcast, which is why Morgan was running a little late today. But yeah, what do you feel about the defense? What did they deliver better this week than they have in previous weeks?
Yeah, so I mean, schematically, I mean, Ron mentioned it in the chat. Actually, is a bit more man. We've seen more man sprinkled in. I don't think that's like a major development. It wasn't like they went, a ton of man or anything like that. The main difference I saw, and again, schematically, most of the same. The main difference was tackling. Man, we made tackles, and it can't be overstated how much that means to this defense. A defense that we saw from the beginning of the year, all the interviews with Jonathan Gannon, how important tackling was going to be, and then we see a game where they actually can tackle, and the defense looks all right. Now, the Denver Broncos. And this is a conversation I've been having on Twitter with one of our fans too, Alejandro's. They're not a good team. I know that they had a big win last week, but they're not a good team. They started off hot, and then they're sellers at the trade deadline. Getting rid of Von Miller, and I just don't think they're a great team. And especially the team we played this weekend is not a great team. They didn't challenge the safeties very much downfield. Tried to run the football and it worked pretty well for them, and then kind of went away from it. Obviously the game script dependent, but they kind of went away from it. The thing that I really liked, and we've been talking about, the linebackers being a weakness of this defense. The other thing is the safety play hasn't been very good at all. You brought in Anthony Harris, who you thought was going to be a good safety number 2 to Rodney McLeod. Rodney McLeod's coming off an injury, hasn't been fantastic. And then you got Marcus Epps. And Marcus Epps and Anthony Harris made some massive, major, important tackles during that game. Huge. And then Rodney McLeod's like solid. If he's your single high guy, he's not going to make very many mistakes. I don't know at his age anymore if he's going to make any crazy plays, but Marcus Epps made some really good tackles. Anthony Harris made some really good tackles. And then Avonte Maddox made some really impressive tackles. And that's the huge difference, right? I think, again, and it's a fair point. Teddy Bridgewater is kind of a dink and dunk kind of player, but, they will take their shots. And they really didn't. There's that one pass that he way overthrew that probably would have been a touchdown if he hit on.
That was a mile away from the receiver.
Exactly. And then
just really quick, Jerry Judy, I feel like he was a non-force in the game at all. Like,
I mean, to be fair, their offensive line got dominated. I know that the numbers weren't necessarily there, but he did not have much time to throw in that pocket. A bit more creativity with the blitzes. I don't know if there's anything, again, schematically it's pretty much the same stuff, but offensive line is pretty dreadful. And I just think that that's one of those teams that makes you look good. If it instills confidence going forward, that's fantastic. Again, you talk about strength of schedule, but tackling, that was the major difference. Tackling and safety play, I think those are what really helped.
So I'm looking at the schedule right now, and it's funny because we went from the Lions. We beat the Lions. We should have beaten the Chargers, but the defense let up. We beat the Broncos. We have the Saints next. We have the Giants next. And then we have the Jets, which it's weird because everybody's looking at this schedule probably hey, we're gonna steamroll this, go into our bye week. Then out of our bye week we face Washington, who doesn't have a quarterback. how am I gonna say this? Can you really can this team really steamroll these opponents and actually be convinced like that they're a legit contender for the playoffs? I don't want to say Super Bowl contender because I feel like we're nowhere near that. But can this team really like build enough confidence and overlook the fact that, hey, we beat these weak opponents to the ground, and then when they go say, damn, actually the rest of the schedule is as light as hell. Wow.
Yeah, it's really just the Cowboys.
Yeah, but the Cowboys they're gonna rest their starters. All right, so say the Eagles win out, they lose one, right? Say they reach the playoffs, wild card, whatever the case may be. Can this team really be dangerous heading into the postseason?
Well, I mean, see, that's the beauty of the playoffs, right? And that's why I love football so much. Is come playoffs, anyone could beat anyone. I think the recipe is, it's the team that makes more mistakes, and we've seen as the season goes on, the Eagles are making less and less mistakes. Now, this is one thing that I didn't bring up during talking about Jalen Hurts, a terrible interception. That like watching
the
film.
Can we talk about that really quick? Yeah,
worse and worse and worse the more I watch it back. I do not understand.
So did he get hit on that play, or because somebody I wrote that in an article and somebody said that he got hit in his arm, and I haven't had a time to look at the play again.
I mean, whether or not he did, I don't. There's zero reason why you're throwing that ball in the first place. I get that Kenny Gainwell missed a block. You had some guy coming out the middle. If you watch the film back, man, like again, all he has to do is step up into the left. We saw Carson Wentz do this all the time where he does that like duck under thing, and we thought it was so fantastic. And now it's just like second nature for quarterbacks is like just to duck under and move to the pocket. If he just moves to the left, clear pocket. And this is a 350-pound defensive tackle. He can't move like you, Jalen. And I get that's an excuse for, Mac Jones or one of these younger guys that can't move very well. But for Jalen Hurts, like you just got to have some pocket awareness. You just got to move to the left. And then you had Devontae Smith wide open underneath. So even if that's not the throw you're going to make, I don't know why you lob it up there. There's another play too that should have been a pick.
That was a Devontae Smith pass. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. When Devontae kind of played defender at that moment.
There's the other one too where the corner like was leaping backwards and almost came down with it as well. So yeah, I worry. Yeah, it was an out route. But yeah, I worry a bit about that. I think that's like again
that's what I'm saying. Like he has those moments where it's like you're doing great, and you're like, what the.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was one of the reasons why I watched the game back because I wasn't able to see like it all in succession, and but I did see that interception, and I just like, you would have thought it was a completely different game. You would have thought he was making mistakes all over the place because otherwise he's doing really well, and then plays like that kind of come out of nowhere. So that's what worries me. So come playoff time, if we can see progression and him not making mistakes, if you can run the football in January, you got a pretty good chance regardless. So.
Okay. So just to quickly announce to everybody in the chat. So like I mentioned on last Tuesday, we're gonna focus on recapping the game in this podcast. Thursday we will focus on Know Your Enemy, where we'll bring a guest writer from the opposing team to talk about the upcoming matchup. We feel like closer to the game what makes more sense to having Know Your Enemy and kind of focus on that separately. So whatever you guys do have questions on the chat, just bring it in and we'll put it up on the screen and we'll answer it live here today. So really quick, going back to Jalen. I've tried to play cynical with Jalen for the past couple of weeks, where it's kind of like, no, I want Matt Corral, I want Russell Wilson. It's fair game. Those are the guys I want. But weirdly enough, like he's having a lot more moments where it's like he's looking pretty damn good. Now a lot of things are kind of circling right now, the Twitterverse, let's call it that. Jalen Hurts only had 3 pass attempts in the second half and only 1 completion. It was only for 3 yards. Is that a concern where you see the team kind of just focusing on the run game in the second half? Or is it like, one of those things you brush under the rug, like, hey, it is what it is. He's developing. He's doing what he has to do. We still won the game.
I mean, it's a good question, right? Because, when you run the football, you kind of wonder, like, is that because it's just working, or is that because, we had to take a step back from Jalen Hurts? And to be honest, they should have been running the football the whole year, right? And if this was, week 2, week 3, week 4, we've seen a consistent pattern where they're going to run the football first. But just with this narrative, it seems like, okay, they've realized that Jalen Hurts can't do some things. Whether or not that's true, I think that they're probably just running the football because it's working. But I mean, game script wise, you don't really need to throw the football. The thing that I think that I'm starting to realize is outside of Devontae Smith and then with Dallas Goedert being injured, there's not much out there. I like Quez Watkins. He's a wide receiver 3.
That freaking ball in the freaking end
Well,
zone. No, don't you well me. That was in the breadbasket. That was a beautiful
but this is what I'm
throw.
saying, right? This is what I'm saying, right? Like he's a wide receiver 3. He's not a wide receiver 2.
No,
He's
definitely
and Jalen Reagard, I've been a fan of his skill set since he came out, and I don't see it getting. I think that he's a guy that goes to a different team and does really well, and is like a really solid role player, kind of like Nelson Aguilar with the Raiders.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Like, yeah, exactly. But I just don't think it's a fit. He looks defeated, man.
What's so difficult about getting Jalen Reagard? Why did I get light out of nowhere? What's so difficult about getting Jalen Reagard to fit into this offense? Like, I don't get it. Like, to me, he's speedy enough to be in a slot.
Mm-hmm.
He has fair hands. He's pretty much like catch. He's Deebo Samuel to me, at least. Let's not compare him to that same level, but he has the potential of Deebo Samuel, where you can do the end arounds. You run him out of the backfield if need be, run him in the slot, and he'll be open with that speed. So what the hell is so difficult of getting this kid to play to his potential? Like, I don't understand. Like, this isn't the same coaching staff that we had last season. And one thing that's very significant about this coaching staff is if you look at the list of drops in the league, like the Eagles are not up there anymore. They don't have a player like Nelson Aguilar with 20 drops in one season already on top. They're not there, which is phenomenal. But what's so hard to get Jalen Reagard acclimated into this offense?
I think with Jalen Reagard at this point, it's a personality thing. I think similar to how you have Derek Barnett, you've waited for him to change, you've waited for him to kind of show you what he can do. And there's been glimpses. Like, man, the one catch that he did make last game was beautiful catch, nice route, open, especially by NFL standards. He's wide open, right? So like it's there. I just think, and I can't speculate. I'm not in the locker room, but I just think him and Aaron Moorhead, they've had them, for the same. Since he's been here, I just think there's some bad blood there. I don't know if it's like super bad blood or just a bad taste in your mouth. I just think that Jalen Reagard is like fit in Philly and whatever is going on there. I just think he looks kind of checked out, especially like, he had that one punt return where he made some moves and got like 10 yards and then he's like slamming the ball into the ground. Like, that's not a happy player. That doesn't look like a happy player. There's late in the second when they're just running go routes. Like, that's like, give me a jump ball, right? And that's your opportunity as a receiver. And he's running half speed. I think he just looks like a player that doesn't really want to compete here. And it's a shame because he really has the potential and he really has the ability. I just think the coaching staff has kind of realized this and said, hey, look, if we're going to win games, we can't have him be 15% of the playbook. We can't have him be 10% of the playbook. We got to give him 5 plays and then let him run routes. And if Jalen Hurts finds him, great. But I don't think you're scheming for him anymore. I think you're trying to get Devontae Smith going, Dallas Goedert. Like, those are your 2 guys. And honestly,
you're right. I feel like you're about to mention your guy. If that's the case, why not have a sure-handed receiver taking the place of wide receiver 2 in Greg Ward? Why are we not elevating John Hightower into the roster and having that speed to match the speed of Quez Watkins? Like, they could really take the top off the defenses with those 2 guys on the outside and Devontae in the slot. And I get it. Like, you have to earn your role into this new roster. You have to earn your role into this offense and into getting targets on this offense. I completely understand. I respect it. But right now, like you mentioned, the offense is revolving around Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts' legs and then the run game. Yep. I mean, Miles Sanders, when he comes back, I feel like it's gonna be a little weird with the touches, but you need weapons on the outside, and Quez isn't enough.
Yeah. I mean, the second coming of Boston Scott is kind of making me, want to push for more Greg Ward. I think that Greg Ward and Jalen Hurts are a bit of a strange fit. It would take some time, especially like we saw, like he had 0 targets in the first 5 games or something like that, and then scored a touchdown, a late game touchdown. Anyways, I think it's a weird fit. I think Jalen Hurts as a quarterback is similar to like problems we have with Wentz, where it's like, okay, he's over targeting Hurts. Like, I think the same thing's happening here. Is he's looking for Devontae Smith, he's looking for Dallas Goedert. Those are the 2 guys he's looking for.
Well, they're sure-handed guys.
Exactly. And Quez Watkins, to be fair, is really good at adjusting to Jalen rolling out of the pocket. That's something he's really good at, and something you can't really teach that well, which is really awesome. But again, he's a third wide receiver. So I think it's not out of the question, talking about this draft, that the Eagles go and get another receiver, or obviously the window's closed for Odell Beckham, but some kind of free agent for next year. Might be a good, just a veteran guy, right? We're talking about hands, like just a guy that can run a solid route. Like similarly, if we could get Alshon Jeffrey back in his prime from the Bears, like a pickup like that.
So Allen Robinson, pretty much, is what you're looking for.
Sure, that would be great.
Sure.
That'd be fantastic.
I'm not offering him, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. I'll take him. Sure. But yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point where it's like, why not switch it up? And I just think, I mean, I'm sure you love to talk about this too, but I think that one, front office wants to see their first round pick on the field. That's a huge thing. And then two, I think that if you take Jalen Reagard off the field, I think you lose him. Like, I don't know, a guy like that in that kind of mental state, like I don't know how he comes back from being benched.
So Doug Peterson did something interesting his first season in Philly, and he sat Nelson Aguilar, who was a first round pick.
Yeah.
And he told the media, like, I'm sitting him so he could see the game from a different angle. Like, he needs a mental break. And
sure.
I get it. Philly's too much. We've said this so many times. The reason Philly's too much is because the fans know too much. We know way too much about the game of football. We know way too much about what's going on within the organization, and we know too much. We know better. We know better than a lot of the front office guys, which is wild. You never really have a fan base like that. And Jalen Reagard, unfortunately, has been the victim of this front office because he was a first round pick when Justin Jefferson was still on the board. Justin Jefferson went on to set records in Minnesota.
Didn't trade up for CD either.
They didn't trade up for CD because apparently nobody wants to make any moves, which is a little wild for me. But then they use Jalen Reagard. They say Justin Jefferson's not a fit, but then they use Jalen Reagard how they would have used Justin Jefferson. So it made no sense at all. On top of that, it's a weird thing going on where it's a trendy thing with Philly, where every so often, like every other draft, or every other two drafts, there's a first round pick that just doesn't produce. Derek Barnett's the same guy. He's been the same guy since he's been drafted. Andre Dillard, same guy. Like, these guys are getting drafted too high, and the expectations are way too high for them to produce. Jalen Reagard, on top of that, he's dealing with Philly. Like, he's dealing with the fans. Like, there's no question that there's at least two fans right now on Twitter that just called him out. 5 minutes to be two more fans. It's a consistent thing, and that's not good for this kid's mental health. It also doesn't help that they can't figure out how to use him. Right. Which is the wildest thing to me. Like, I get, you want to rotate Devontae in and out, which is great because Devontae's phenomenal either way. Quez on the outside. Jalen Reagard is not an outside wide receiver to me. So if that's the case, you bring in a John Hightower, or you should have never dropped Travis Fulgham, which I get his practice habits were poor.
Sure.
You should have invested in another wide receiver to have on the outside just in case Jalen Reagard wasn't panning out. You can make this look so easy. Where if you're resting Smith, you have Reagard in the slot. You set up Reagard on screens. You're giving all the screens to Watkins, and I get it because Reagard is it's hard. It's getting. I feel like I'm contradicting myself because it's so hard to defend him knowing that he's doing boneheaded stuff because he gets the screen pass, but then he goes backwards. So it's kind of like, I don't know, man.
There's a few things I saw. Do you remember that clip? It was like in one of the joint practices where they had like Jalen Reagard like motion on this side and then motion on that side, and then they threw a little like screen to him on the other side in the red zone. And like, where is that? Is that's what I'm wondering. It's like this guy, you throw him one or two slants, you throw him one screen, and then all of a sudden the defense has to account for him. So I'm in kind of in two minds too, right? If Sirianni's thinking of this as like, this is my shot, like this is what I have to prove. I have to prove I can coach. Then like, I'm not wasting time trying to get Jalen Reagard going. It could help you, but like I'm doing what works. On the other hand, it won't actually take that much. Like, this is what I was talking. I remember writing an article after Jalen Reagard's first year. Like, dude gets like 3, maybe 5 targets a game, right?
Last year or this year?
Last year.
Okay.
And like that was like a good. This year it's even worse.
Yeah.
And you're talking about Justin Jefferson. You're talking about Brandon Ayuk. You're talking about these guys that CD. they're getting 7 to 9 if like on a good day, right? On a bad day, or I mean on a bad day, on a good day, they're getting 12. They could
Yeah.
be, right? Huge parts of their offense. And so I think that like that, if I'm Jalen Reagard, I'm looking at that. I'm going, hey, how are these teams using their rookies? And they're getting all these targets. It's like, why am I not getting that? And then you bring in a new coaching staff and they're not changing their plans. And then they're giving you like, I get it. He's a great runner. Give him the ball in the hands, but like you're a receiver, right? If I'm a
Yeah, that's
receiver,
true.
I don't want to run like end arounds that aren't working all the time. Like that's what they're giving him screens, they're giving him end arounds. He's running good routes, and like you've seen it, I've seen it on the all 22, and like watching film. There's a lot of times he's open.
Yeah.
Now, as a coach, you can't make Jalen Hurts throw the ball to Reagor, but it's frustrating. I get it. And that's why I say I feel like he's a guy that goes to another team. Maybe trade him in the offseason, and he does well. But I just don't know how you get him going in Philly. It's tough.
So right now, Jalen Reagard, he has 1, 2, 3. He has 4 people ahead of him in receiving yards right now. Devontae Smith, of course, at 603. After Devontae is tight end Dallas Goedert, 429. Then after him is Quez Watkins, 408. After Quez, it's Kenny Gainwell, 173.
Yeah.
So Jalen Reagard is after all these guys at 171. He's averaging 7 yards per catch. Only has 2 touchdowns. His longest catch has been for 24 yards.
What are his targets compared to Kenny?
That is not showing me right now, so I'll definitely look into that. But he's only averaging 17 yards per game right now. So I get where you're coming from with this whole talk. So just kind of brief, to kind of go back on what we're talking about is this offense is looking great. It's moving great. But at some point, you're going to face the defense. Probably not this season because the rest of this defense, the teams are trash, except for Washington. So maybe Washington. Let's say Washington's defense. You're going to face a team like Washington where they could possibly lock down Smith and they could possibly lock down Goddard. Who's your option outside of that? We're back to probably a pass-heavy offense where Jalen's scrambling for his life, doesn't know where to throw it, throwing interceptions. So you should be getting Jalen acclimated to either Quez, either John Hightower, or Jalen Reagor, who was a first-round pick last season.
Yep.
You got to do it. It's the weirdest thing to say, but you have to make it work. Like this is a marriage that you just can't get out of. You have to make it work. He's not Jalen Reagor has no trade value, as we spoke to Lance Zierlein about. There's no trade value for this kid right now.
Right.
So you're not moving him for a high pick. That's not happening. You got to make this work somehow, some way. This has to work. If the Panthers can make Curtis Samuel work, this has to work. Deebo Samuel is the perfect blueprint to what Jalen Reagor could possibly be. So it's like at this point,
the locker room seems to like him.
Yeah,
like
everybody seems to love him.
Problems. Yeah,
the kid, he's been keeping his head high. He's been doing what he can, even on social media. I mean, he went through a lot his rookie season. I mean, he dealt with a lot from the media, from the fans. It's a tough situation to be in, but you got to make this work. You need another weapon on his offense, and you're not getting it in free agency or the trade deadline because that's way past. So you got to make it work, especially if you're talking about playoffs.
One of the things he did really well in college is he's surprisingly good across the middle. And, as soon as I say that, I'm sure a light bulb goes off. Like, what we haven't seen from Jalen Hurts is throws over the middle.
Yeah, no throws over the middle in the last game. Did you see that chart?
See, that's the thing, man. It's like I think that's why I'm pumping the brakes on Jalen Hurts because they're still thinking like they're able to win. I don't know if they're winning because of him. They're definitely not winning in spite of him. But it's that middle ground. It's like I don't think that this game changed anything for him. It was a great game overall, and he didn't lose the game for you. Absolutely, he managed the game. A couple interceptions away from, or a couple almost interceptions away from giving Denver a chance. I just don't think much changed for me. So I mean, we keep bouncing from topic to topic. I think that like with getting this offense going in general, there's just a question of like, what's important to you? Is it important to you to win games and control clock and like, or is it important still that you're evaluating Jalen Hurts? If it's still evaluating, then you're not seeing much. I don't know if there's much to convince me. I still think you go defense in the upcoming draft. This defense is dreadful. But yeah, a game like this, great. It was a great win. I don't know if it like swings me one way or the other on Jalen Hurts.
So we do have a question in the chat. This one's from Ron K. So is Jalen not throwing to the middle because he is too short and has trouble seeing over the line? Which ironically, I made a funny comment about that a couple of weeks ago. Because he is kind of small for a quarterback. But
sure.
do you think this is a strong possibility? I mean, he really doesn't target the middle of the field at all.
Yeah, it's a real thing. I don't know if it's like the thing. I think that it's a fair point. I think the main thing is that clock in his head that's going off, right? He can't really throw the middle. If you're rolling right all the time, you don't throw the football in the middle. You just like that's – I mean, you don't get to the NFL and knowing that you can't throw across your body to the middle of the field, right?
Which,
there's a few guys.
He threw a lot to the left side of the field this game. A lot.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, like stepping up to the left, okay, so if they know you're going to roll right, they're going to put more pressure on the right. They're usually be putting the 3 tech to that side of the field. And then they're going to make you try and get outside of them. And they try to do that. Credit to Sirianni again. Like I think he's thinking, okay, if Jalen wants to roll, we're going to have some design rolls. We're going to get this offensive line, because that's frustrating too as an offensive line, right? You made your block, and then because of Jalen Hurts, because of the way he's rolling out, all of a sudden you let up a sack, and it's not really your fault. And there's a lot of those early in the season. And I just think like, some going through progressions for sure. There was, obviously that pass to Quez Watkins is great, but that's an NFL pass. That's a pass you expect a quarterback to be able to make.
And you expect a wide receiver to catch, but yeah.
Well, exactly. But yeah, I just, I think that the shortness plays a factor. But you've seen short quarterbacks, right? Kyler Murray. Usually, what you do is their launch points deeper, so you have them take like a 5 to 7 step drop instead of a 3-step drop. That helps.
This is a bit of an arm factor as well.
The arm strength.
Yeah. Because Kyler Murray has a freaking cannon on him. Russell Wilson has a cannon, and they're the smallest guys in the league. I mean,
sure.
with Jalen right there, with Jalen being right there.
Tua is a short guy too.
Is he?
I don't know. Yeah, I think
but Tua has a cannon too for lefty.
Yeah,
exactly. He has a freaking cannon.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like, if that's the problem, if he's not tall enough, then like how do you fix that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I think exactly. So I think like that may be the case, but that's you can't really focus on that. You got to scheme around it. But I think the main problem is he's out of the pocket in 2.5 seconds most of the time. So.
Okay, so we got another question from Ron. So again, guys, we are answering questions live on today's podcast. So whatever questions you guys have, just shoot them forward. We have a wild question next. So Ron K asked, could being a shotgun for pass plays just trying to make it easier to see over the line? I feel like if that was the case, we would have seen more in the middle kind of passes for Jalen. Because it's nothing but shotgun for him. And it's weird. Like, I feel like when he's under center and he's actually standing tall in the center, he's a lot more efficient. And I said that against the Chargers. Like, he looks so damn good throwing from the pocket. And he even said himself, he's like, he knows he could pass from the pocket, and he knows he's great at it. It's just a matter of him trusting his protection. I don't know. I mean, I don't think the play set matters at all.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's constantly a problem with shorter quarterbacks, especially ones that are so athletic. If he's got in his mind he's going to run or he's not looking downfield, it's really hard to see on film where his eyes are, right? But I think that's the case too, where he's just not stepping up. There's a pocket there. There's been a pocket there. This offensive line is because of what Jalen Hurts is doing. I feel like this offensive line is really underrated, but they've been pretty fantastic.
Oh, they've been phenomenal.
So to watch the game and see the way that the offense is operating and the pass game is operating, you'd assume we don't have a very good offensive line because he's out of there. But you just got to step up. Throws over the middle have to happen, man. The good thing is it's opening up running lanes because the linebackers are bailing out of there to go cover. The only pass plays are outs and corners and goes and hitches on the outside. So
that's fair. Yeah. So real quick question. Myself, So with Jalen not targeting the middle, and I'm kind of thinking about it now, like there's not many receivers over the middle with him. Like I don't know if that's just me, but I haven't noticed much. Like I see the crossing routes, but in the crossing routes, you never really target them dead center in the middle of the field. It's more so like
Right.
when they're a little bit outside. But you barely see like
Deep ends.
yeah, like you never really see that in the middle of the field with him. And it's like everybody's just pick a side pretty much. Like we're playing that game, like just pick a side and I'll throw it to one of you guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like not as much. I don't really think that's like, I don't know if that's like a chicken and the egg situation where you just realize that he doesn't want to do that, so you don't put it in your playbook. Like I think this is my question is like, if I could be a fly on the wall for in the locker room, is like it's always hard to tell whether this is we've realized that Jalen can't do these things very well, so we're not going to do them, or we're not going to do them, and then Jalen Hurts isn't getting better at them because they're not calling those plays. But I mean, Dallas Goedert could be open over the middle anytime he wants to be. And even with some of the throws we've seen, they're a bit low, a bit off sometimes.
A bit behind.
Yeah, a bit behind. I just think that it might take an off season. It might take an off season for Jalen Hurts just to like really focus on that. Like go see, is it Tom House that's like the genius? Go see him, go to a quarterback school and just like drill that in. Yeah, again, this is where it comes back to like he isn't a rookie, but he's still got a lot to work on. He's a young quarterback, so I think that's one of those things. Now, if he develops that, he's shown a lot, right? If he can start like that pass to Dallas Goedert to find him on third down and long when he's stepping up left and then throwing, like the beautiful, picturesque, like chef's kiss. That's awesome. If he can do that, like sky's the limit, man.
I completely agree with that. So we do have a bit of an outlandish question in the chat, and it's not so far-fetched because, well, let's just real quick. So Kyle, sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong, Kyle. So Kyle Schaefer, what about trading for Zach Wilson, who is not the buzz in New York right now? It's more so Mike White. White he's pretty much balling out. They're not winning. Jets just don't win for some reason. But Wilson, I mean, he's losing a buzz. Obviously, they're not gonna start White over Wilson.
Right.
I would have before this trade at all. Honestly, I pick Jalen over Zach Wilson any day.
Yeah. I never really liked Zach Wilson as a prospect. I didn't really see it. But again, like I just think that this is a question we've been talking about for a couple weeks now, and like if your problem is fit, which really that's what it looks like, is they're getting over that hump. But for a while there, it was just like Jalen Hurts didn't really fit this offense. I don't think bringing in a guy like Zach Wilson who does the same stuff, but maybe has better arm talent slightly. I don't know if that solves any problems for you. Also, the cost. I don't know. Like it's cool. It's cool to think that we could, because the offense does have some exciting pieces. If we could just bring in a quarterback, but I just
it sounds like you're not sold on Jalen Hurts right now. We might as well talk about it. So we're about 43 minutes in the podcast. And again, guys, if you're with us live on YouTube right now, click on the link below. This podcast is presented by TickPick, where you get better seats for the same price as the other guys, and there's no fees added to your purchase. So definitely click on the link below to go directly to TickPick, because right now is the most exciting time to watch Eagles football. And I mean, it's definitely gonna be a lot of winnable games going forward. So yes, Russell wasn't. Wow, I answered your question right there. Jalen Hurts. It sounds like you're not really like. All right, if you could add a percentage to it of how sold you are on Jalen Hurts getting another year, not because you feel like the defense needs to be built upon in the draft, but because this is your guy. Is this your guy or not your guy? The percentage on that right now.
I think for next year it's pretty high, man. Like just looking at the QB class, I'm not in love with any of these quarterbacks. I said it, weeks back. I think Kenny Pickett's like my favorite prospect of them. I like Matt Corral is obviously the best. I still think he's got some stuff to work on, and I just I hate to say it, like I just don't really like the guy. Like I have a hard time watching his interviews. I don't like to hear him speak. Like for me, that's just like one of those guys I don't like to cheer for. Okay. But for just going off the board, he's the top prospect by far. I think Kenny Pickett's a guy you can get. He's rising up the draft boards. I like that I mentioned him and then he went off.
Yeah, it's been ever since you mentioned him that people have noticed who Kenny Pickett is. So credit to you for that one.
For sure. But I just think like again, he's a guy you bring in like he's not winning you 100 like all these games, right? Like again, like if you are going to pick a quarterback, he's the guy because he's not going to make very many mistakes. The ball is going to come out quickly. He's going to get the ball to his playmakers. So that's what Jalen Hurts is doing. So like, I don't see how that makes you a better football team. So I think that his chance staying on this team is great, unless for some reason how he falls in love with one of these quarterback process and the pre-draft process. And we know how he kind of does that, right? It's like we didn't really see this guy coming, and then all of a sudden he's got 5 interviews with the Eagles, and it's like, okay, that's a guaranteed pick, right? That's just how we operate.
That time of the year.
Yeah, I know it's coming faster than I got to like start doing prospect work too. But yeah, I think that you're better off going defense. The one kind of caveats that we've been talking about is you don't turn down a guy like Russell Wilson. If you can get that guy on your team, you take him. Doesn't matter. Okay. 3 picks, 4 picks, I don't care. You just get that guy on your team.
Okay. So we do have a couple questions. So we do have a question on our Instagram page. So shout out to Sean Shank, who's actually been a regular with us for the longest. So Sean has a couple questions, and then we'll reach out to Ron K's question in the chat. Sean's question: aside from Hurts continuing to progress, which we just spoke about, what do we think is the Eagles' other key to maybe snagging a wild card spot? And for the draft, while we want mostly defense in round 1, are there wide receivers we want to get like Olave or Dotson? Did I say Olave's last name? Is it Olave or is it Olave?
I think it's Olave.
It's Olave? That sounds 10 times better than Olave. So I apologize to him for butchering his last name.
Yeah. I don't think it's like. I don't know. You'd look pretty crazy on paper if you went wide receiver for the 3rd year in a row in the first round. Like I don't think we're at that point, unless for some reason Jalen Reagard starts playing out of his mind. You can trade him for something. I don't know if we get. I'm not against getting wide receiver 2nd or 3rd round or later. I think you need another receiver. Like we were just talking about this, so I think that it's not in the first round. I think that makes you look pretty silly.
I'm not against it, honestly.
I'm not against it either, but I think for Howie, a man trying to keep your job and you're going for a wide receiver again, like I just don't think that's how you keep your job in the NFL.
But right now, the Eagles are one wide receiver dimensional. it's
true.
Devontae Smith or die, and if you could get a guy like Chris Olave, well, like you're adding a second dimension to this offense. It's kind of like okay, defensive coordinator. How do we defend these guys?
Which pick is that? Like if you're spending your second, your 10th overall, that's what we got right now, right? 10th or 11th.
So I think it's 11th. So we're 5th, 11th, and 15th.
Yeah,
I think
so you're spending your 11th.
Why not?
15.
So 5th, if you go defense, it's either Stingley or Hamilton, right? I would assume so. One of those guys.
Yeah, hopefully Hamilton. Yeah, I think the thing we haven't talked about is I think you paid Darius Slay this offseason. I think you pay him what he wants.
He's
I
definitely.
I think you give him a blank check and you say sign what you want, retire.
Yeah, I agree with that because he's played out his mind, and you don't move on from a guy like that. But I think you go defense, wide receiver, defense, or offensive line. I don't think they need an offensive lineman, honestly, because I feel like they're stacked at offensive line, and they have a lot of they have a lot of developing talent. They don't have phenomenal talent, but they have guys who can get it done.
Is this ideal draft, or is this what you think? Because I would be interested in ideal.
I feel like Howie will find a way to get a wide receiver in the first round. Like it's not you're seeing this offense for what it is, and it's kind of like I said, it's one dimensional right now at the wide receiver position. It's only Devontae Smith for nothing. Quez Watkins is dropping passes in the end zone. Yeah, Reagard hasn't showed up, and we haven't seen nothing else. It's weird. We've only seen 3 wide receivers touch the ball this year.
Yeah,
like that's crazy to me. Yeah, Greg Ward has touched it probably once or twice.
Greg Ward scored some touchdowns.
I think he has like 2 touchdowns, but that's it. Like there's nothing else. We haven't seen anything. Yeah. Isn't that a little weird? Like you have like the Green Bay Packers where they distribute the ball to like every single receiver, but Devontae Adams still gets his touches. But then you have the Eagles where it's like only 3 receivers have touched the ball. Or 4 if you count Greg Ward's 1 or 2 catches. the second question: what do we think of what do we think is the Eagles' other key to maybe snagging a wild card spot? If I'm gonna regret this. I feel like they could win out. In complete honesty, like you can't. You have it's the Jets, the Giants, the Washington football team, and a Cowboys team that's gonna rest the starters. Like that's the only 4 teams remaining outside of the Saints, which is a very winnable game in my opinion. You can win out. You really can win out, and if you win out, that's what damn, help me with the math right now. How many games we have left? 7, 8 or 7?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7.
So 7. So you're 11-6.
Yeah,
That's definitely a wild card spot.
Is
But
that what you
like
predicted at the beginning of the year? 11-6.
It was either that or 10 or something. I definitely predicted more than 10 wins. So it hasn't been that. But they can win out. If they win out, you have to be a wild card team. There's no way you're not if you win all those games. So I think
it's a weird year, man. In general, it's a weird
season.
Yeah,
such a wild season, but it's kind of getting fun to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. I like that you can't even count on the Jets to lose. Like I don't think anyone saw the Jets beating the Ravens on.
You
Thursday
can't say that
night.
when we face them a couple of weeks from now.
Well, I mean, going off of that, in the back of my head, I'm trying not to think this, but I think the Saints might be a bit of a trap game. I think you're kind of riding a high, thinking you're all that, and the Saints are not a bad team by him. You still have to deal with Alvin Kamara. You still have to deal with a quite underrated receiving core. Marquise Callaway, I think. Yeah, and
Kamara,
just like
Kamara injured. He
didn't play last week. He didn't play last week. I think he's bad. I don't think it was that serious. But yeah, and a pretty solid defense overall. I think it could be a trap game. I think they come in, riding a high, and it's going to be closer than a lot. I don't think you're going to blow out the Saints.
I wouldn't say blowout.
No, but they're well coached. I just think it's going to be a close game. Whenever you have close games with the Eagles, it's about whether you can close, and they haven't won any games where they've had to close yet, except for the Panthers game, right? So
the reason I feel like it's kind of a win game, and this is going to be a huge shout out to Chris because he's actually going to the game. So I'm using Chris as a good luck charm right now. Mm-hmm. So Chris is going to be there. A majority of the PSN guys are going to be there. So shout out to all you guys. Crazy. They're going to be there. So that's one reason why the Eagles could definitely win. Second thing is the Eagles have yet to win at home. That's all the motivation in the world. You haven't won in Philly at all this season.
It's true.
And you just finished pounding the Broncos. You just finished beating the Lions a couple weeks ago. You had a close game against the Chargers. Like this is overdue. Defense is the corners are filling themselves. Defensive line, they're kind of getting their swagger back a little bit. The run game is thriving, and you're getting Miles Sanders back this week, which is going to go to our next question from Ron. I feel like this is an impossible game to lose for Philly, in my opinion, because you haven't won at home, and it's going to be a packed stadium because they're rolling now. Everybody likes to, everybody's back on the wagon.
Well, if we get Jalen Hurts against the Saints like we did last year, then it'll be a great game. But just to answer that question, what's needed to make a run in the playoffs or even make to the playoffs? I mean, there's two things. It's your run game and your defense. And your run game is looking better. You gotta see more for your defense. Not a good defense. Looked okay against again, just not a good Broncos team. I know that I might be.
You got to be aggressive against the Saints. You have to be aggressive.
100%.
Broncos.
100%. Jameis Winston's completely capable of throwing 4 picks in a game. Is he still?
He's out for the year. Yeah, he's out for the year.
Oh, jeez, man, I watched this game. I've been busy.
Your quarterback is on Trevor Siemian. That's why I'm saying, bro, there's no way you lose.
Yeah. Okay. Still, another guy who's capable of throwing, a lot of picks in the game. You got to put pressure on him. You can't sit back in zone coverage, and we see more man too. So I like that. I like man against this team. Not a deep squad, but some underrated receivers. But it's all about your defense. I don't know. They just haven't been very good.
They gotta show up. If they're gonna make a run, the defense has to hold their own. They held the Broncos to 13. I get that, but you gotta hold these other teams to 13 and below if you're gonna win out. So Ron K did have a question, and it's regarding my guy. So how do we divide up the running back snaps when Sanders comes back? Sanders RB1 and Howard RB2. Does Scott get snaps? Gainwell. I think no question it's going to be the second part of the question. Sanders RB1, Howard RB2, because Sanders does everything Scott does. And they start Scott as RB1 in the past couple of games. Now, the big difference between Scott and Sanders is the home run, the home run plays. Sanders has a very high tendency of doing that. And if he's seeing the game from a different angle right now, if you're seeing how this run game's come together, you have to see that as like an advantage for you. You're at a vantage point right now where it's like you're seeing the holes open up. You're seeing what you like, and you could tell the offensive staff like, hey, I like these runs. I saw Scott do this in this runs. I could do the same or better. We saw Scott break some big runs, and Sanders has that speed where it's like he's gone within a minute. So I think it's gonna be Sanders, Howard, and I think Gainwell loses snaps to Scott going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you see Gainwell on third and long. You see him on obvious passing situations. I think the main thing with him is not necessarily how much of a threat he can be with the ball in his hands, but just not great in pass protection yet. He's got some things to work on. He's still a rookie, right? So I think we've seen this before. We've seen Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders, and Boston Scott in the rotation, and it'll look like that again. I think that's fantastic for this team. Something that Boston Scott does a bit better than Miles Sanders is he limits the negative plays, right? He's not looking for that home run as much. He puts his head down, he buries himself. He's a hard guy to find behind this massive offensive line as well. So I like that. Like, I've always liked Boston Scott. This is the similar situation as the Greg Ward. He's just one of those guys that I just really appreciate, like how he plays football. He's an underrated player, and we showed like this year he's shown that he can play when it's not against the Giants. So that's fantastic.
81 yards in the last game.
Yeah, man. I think that the combination of the three, if they keep running the football as much as they are, like, again, a couple of home runs from Miles Sanders away from really blowing some teams out.
Listen, the combination of the three, like if they can actually get this running back room going in a higher velocity than they are right now, it reminds me a lot of that Giants team that had Bradshaw, Jacobs,
the Colts team. The Colts
they went to the Super Bowl,
right? Yeah, for sure.
It's very possible that you can win in the playoffs with a run game. You don't have to pass much. Time of possession is on your side. If they're averaging 7 to 8 yards a carry,
if you got a good defense, if your defense can stop anyone at all, like if we're looking at that really, and they're going in, if we get that wild card spot, they're probably playing the Packers or the Cardinals. Can we stop the Packers or the Cardinals on any drive at all? Unless we get a weird Aaron Rodgers game where he's not that good.
So
Cardinals,
I think we have better hope against the Cardinals, honestly.
Maybe if they fall off.
It's weird because I mean, I get they have the weapons, but DeAndre Hopkins isn't as healthy as he should be heading down the stretch, which is very key. Kyler Murray isn't as healthy as he should be, which is heading down the stretch. And how bittersweet would it be if it's Cardinals versus the Eagles with Zach Ertz wearing red and the Cardinals lose to the Eagles?
It'll be tough.
I think they're a better matchup because Aaron Rodgers, I hate facing. I would never want to face Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you just pick this defense apart.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'll be like the Bucs game all over again.
Yeah, and I think you're right too with the running game as well. I like. That's the one thing that we just cannot stop. I don't understand like the regression. This is something I'm gonna have to do a deep dive in on the offseason, probably just to like even understand. I do not understand why we can't stop the run. It's beyond linebackers at this point. The defensive line hasn't looked good against the run. I don't know why we can't stop it.
I feel like they're just being outcoached. And it's weird. Like we talked about this. It could have been with you or it could have been with Bisetto last week, where it just feels like this is a situation where the personnel doesn't match the scheme.
Right.
The personnel doesn't match the guy that's calling, that's putting the plays together. It just feels like it doesn't match at all. Like they look out of place majority of the time. And it's weird. Like the defensive line has cooled down ever since the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too, and I think that like you have a team that's relatively young. Your two oldest groups are offensive line, defensive line. Offensive line
Mhm.
retained their coach and a very good coach at that. I think
Yeah.
that, there's something to be said for, I hate to say you can't teach, old dogs new tricks, but there's a lot of defensive linemen that are set in their ways that were taught, go get the football every time. Like essentially a dream for defensive lines is to linemen to play in Jim Schwartz's scheme. You don't have to worry about anything. You're putting your head down, you're going to get stuff. And that's what you kind of see this year is a lot of plays where the defensive line just has their head down, just going forward, and they're over pursuing. Runs are coming up underneath them. There's cutback lanes. So I just think that, maybe it's not a strong defensive line coach. I don't know much about him.
Mhm.
But I think that, you got some defensive linemen that are just kind of stuck in their ways in the Jim Schwartz defense, and it's just taking some time to acclimate. So that being
How
said,
much longer is it going to take is a question.
well, that's the thing. Either it takes wait too long and it's too late, or they kick it into high gear, and the talent on this defensive line is crazy. And yeah, Ron's got a great point. Brandon Graham, his influence can't be overstated. Like just the heart and soul of this defense.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a huge loss. But
That's kind of wild. But yeah, so that, I mean, we're at the hour mark. I don't know if you want to have, if you have any last thoughts about the game against the Broncos, or if you want to add to anything to your point.
No, man, I just think like temper expectations. Me and Bryan, we're kind of on course for what we thought coming into the year, and I feel like it's been up and down every week. And it's just like really when we step back and take a look at it, this is the team we thought they were going to be. And it's I think this is one of those seasons where you look back on at the end of the season, regardless of how it goes, you're like, do you know what, that was kind of a fun season. It was a fun season. There's a lot of cool like stuff that we've been seeing, a lot of wrinkles. It's like similar to Dougie P's first season. I was like, oh, that was kind of a cool season. I remember we went like beat the Steelers. That was a huge game. Like there's been some moments for sure. So I just think, when it's, whether or not we win the next couple of games that we should win, but like maybe when we lose to the Saints, which I think it's a trap game, we take a step back and just remember that it's been a good season so far. We're still on track. 10 wins, right? 10 wins is what we said. 10 wins. Still very possible.
That's very true. That's definitely what we said. And I was looked at kind of crazy when I said that too. So I want to, notate that on this podcast.
Sure. Pull receipts, Bryan. We'll pull them.
But yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you guys tune into Thursday's podcast, where we will be speaking to a media member of the opposing team, which obviously will be the Saints, and we'll be breaking down Saints versus Eagles, for our Know Your Enemy segment.
For sure. Tune in.
Yeah.
Go Birds.
Damn, he went right to the point. We're gonna go. Okay,
my bad.
I'm Bryan Cameron. He's Morgan Burkett. This is Flippin the Birds. You're not doing it now.
Go Birds. You gotta promise. My bad.